LinkedIn echo chamber. This is ML's like Team Spirit. We have Mark Howland back with me. Mark, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Still in Sweden?
Yep, still in the sauna.
Good. Mark from St Albans. This is your second interview with me, and when we were talking about things to talk about, we talked about your experience in management. So I think I forget, 3 or 4 time chief data scientist. You've had a stellar career. It will have involved managing, large teams, small teams, crazy teams, strange teams. Um, and when we were talking about ideas for this, you had mentioned that you would be interested in talking about hiring and I suppose some of the things you learned over the years. And my initial bit of context to you is that I remember when I first moved into team lead, I was so excited to hire anyone. I've diligently followed what HR told me to do, including all these bits of paperwork, competencies, and all these corporate things that I did. And then it took me about 15 years to learn and optimize my own process, really. So I want you to take the persona of chief data scientist today and maybe take everyone through some of the things you learn as a hiring manager when you're trying to take analysts and how you've optimized your approach given that you've managed all these big teams. Could you start off by just giving us a bit of a whistle stop tour through your management career, actually? Just where you were, the kind of team that you had there, the mix of people. Like, take 60 seconds on this so we can get a bit of context.
Yeah, when I worked client side at Shoppers Drug Mart in Canada, I had a varied team. Some of that was, even though it wasn't really called data science back then, some of that was data science resource doing some assortment work, some modeling work, some CRM targeting work, and then some of it was resources commercializing the till log to Procter and Gamble and Unilever via a BI tool, the type of stuff that I think a fair bit of your audience that's worked with point of sale and grocery data will be familiar with. And then I moved back to the UK to lead the global advanced analytics team at AMIA. That was I suppose diverse in that there were people doing more commercial business development focused products. There were people doing product development, innovation, problem solving, and there were people doing the more complicated work for some of the established clients. So it was a diverse team with people in London, Sweden, Switzerland, Portugal, Japan, and then sort of an outsourcing partnership with a company called Fractal in India. So diverse. I suppose some of I suppose the main lesson or the main message I think is you're with if you've got a sizable team, you'll whether you want to or not, there will always be some vacancies. It's just the nature. People come and go for one reason or another, and there are always burning platforms, things that you need to jump on. But if you don't prioritize hiring, then every day you kick that can down the road, you're carrying an empty role for another day and another day and another day. So whilst it might not be the most important thing today, if you don't do it, it will cumulatively come up and bite you. So just working through that hiring process in a fast and efficient manner and trying to, whether you're doing 1, 2, or 3 interviews, whether you've got a technical test or not, try and get through that ideally in a couple of weeks. Don't make it drag out for a long period of time, because you'll lose the candidate, but you'll also make it an inefficient process, and you won't fill your roles as quickly as really you need to fill them. If you don't get on it, then by the end of it, it will be another month will have passed, and you won't have your team at full strength, and you won't be delivering the projects that you need to deliver for the business.
Good. Mark, I'd like to zoom in on one little bit because you said sort of acquiring, hiring quickly and efficiently. I wanted to pick up and get some insight from you as just to, I'm asking you to take an average of what you believe is a really good process. Let's say to hire a data scientist, and why I'd like to pick on it is I'm old now, or at least I feel like I've done this for 20 years, and I remember certain things. So I remember things like the soft skills, becoming super important. So data scientists used to be able to have enough chops on their own just to be expert coders and trained in statistics and machine learning. Then I remember that they had to be consultants. So the business were like, hey, you got to work with us. So we got to test you in terms of you got to be able to integrate and work with different teams. So we have to examine you that way. And then the latter one probably is a bit more out of business intelligence, but data storytelling was invented. So this was about, hey, this person needs this persona where they can do data science and like stand up and present it and have absolute X factor in front of, I don't know, the big dogs in the company. Now, given all of those kind of character traits that sort of slowly became, I don't know, required, what were you doing when you were hiring to, would you focus on one more than the other? Did you have any secret sauce for how you would structure an interview, or just anything that was that you felt was unique that you developed out of doing so much hiring?
Yeah, I think there are scope for people, candidates, data scientists, all across those spectrum of skills that you've mentioned. And in some roles, yeah, you might need someone who'll scrub up well, and you'll put in front of the client, and you can just let them chat. And then there are other people who perhaps won't want to do that, but they could be really, really good if you say just put your head down for a week and crack this really difficult machine learning problem. And yeah, I suppose as the team leader, you can give those people the help and the support that they need to excel in those different roles. If someone does need a bit of I suppose, cover and support on the soft skills element, and you might need to give them a little bit of protection from the demanding stakeholder to say, look, just give them, give them a couple more days, they're on it, and help them when they're crafting their story, when they're presenting back. Do a practice run if they've come to you with 20 slides on the write up. Can you help and coach them to bring it down to 3 in the main presentation and 17 in the appendix, because the stakeholder might really more care about why you've done it and not care so much about how you've done it when that more, I suppose, technical persona is presenting back. So there's definitely there's scope for all those types of skill set. It's not that everyone needs to necessarily be uh, great at everything, but I think the the one thing, or the overarching thing, is more thinking about hiring for hiring for potential rather than necessarily having to hire for a checklist of skills, because skills and programming languages change over time. And I think some of the best people I've hired um, have come and learned new skills on the job, skills they didn't necessarily have prior to coming in. But when talking to them in interview, they've demonstrated a hunger and a desire to learn new things. And I suppose hire for aptitude rather than necessarily hire for a long checklist of skills is, I think, an important lesson.
And Mark, a question you might not have been expecting because we didn't prepare for it when we set this up. On the hiring for potential, is there anything that you would see or that you remember that you would sort of always identify as someone showing high potential, or something happened in an interview where if this happened, you'd feel compelled to say, I know this person is going to approach this with gusto, and it's going to work out. Is there something that they said, or a way they responded to a question, or something that you figured out um, whilst you're doing so many interviews that you began to recognize as, like, this is just a good thing? I'll confide in you mine after you've spoken, but I just wondered if you have anything that you could tell me.
Um, yeah, I think there's one interview that sticks in my mind. When I was working at Fable Data, a candidate came in and was talking about a project that they'd done at university, and it required a regular hit to a share price data set, and they'd come up with a really nice solution rather than having to just go and pull the whole reference data set every time they wanted to get it and load it into memory. They thought through about creating a local relational database, so they only had to go and get the deltas in each time. And it wasn't it wasn't the first time that someone had thought through and cracked that problem, but it was someone who was starting out in their career, and they thought it through in a a really sensible manner to manage the storage and the compute problem, to be able to then tackle their problem and run the code every day. So just that type of problem solving approach, even though it might have been perhaps a little bit over engineered for the problem, they'd thought through a very good solution to show that they'd built something that was sustainable rather than building something that was really hacky. So it was a nice example of a really good technical solution to solve a problem, and they demonstrated that they could learn some new skills. So they showed a lot of a lot of potential.
Yeah, really good one. So the problem solving and kind of some lateral thinking and just seeing the thought process like that is always really enlightening as to what the candidate will be like. The continuous learning part you just brought up. I mean, I will share mine, Mark, seeing as we're doing this. So shout out Andreas Dimitri. We were together at Carlytics. I'm going to tag him into this video when I post it. So Andreas got a job with me after only 5 minutes. Poor guy had to suffer through another 60 minutes of interview practically, but he aced it straight away and was really great. And we came to the question where we'd say, like, how do you stay on top of your field? And it was around, how are you learning and these sorts of things. And he answered that question, in a very long way. So it was like, every single thing you could do as an analyst is like, oh, I'd like to learn that, and I'm thinking about studying this. I think he was trying to convey that, he just has a thirst for learning. He had the job like 45 minutes prior, so probably me being a bit mischievous, and I sort of twisted it onto him and said, Andreas, I feel like you're telling me that you need to work on absolutely everything. We do need someone that can hit the ground running with this. I'm happy with your interview so far, but what would you say to any doubt that I had? So it was, I almost said it with a smirk and a smile on my face. I wasn't being an asshole, but he came right back at me. He said, I already will be high performing based on everything I told you. When I do these things and you support me on it, my performance will be 2x. And I loved his response to be confident. He didn't crumble, so he came straight back at me, and I really felt like that could be like when you're in a rough meeting. Someone says your chart sucks. They do say it when you're in business. They're like, oh, that data's not right. And you have to sort of go like, hey, well, I've done this, this, and this, and you have to not crack or crumble. So I love that he came back at me. I love that he didn't crumble, and I had to really keep my cool not to offer him a job on the spot. So congrats, Andreas. Mark, that's probably our story. So we've got out of this one, prioritizing hires is just mission critical. If you're not doing it, you're creating a future problem. I know I've probably been guilty of it, and I wonder if you learned that the hard way. You don't have to say yes or no, but it's something I think people can recognize. And then just really optimizing the hiring process. I think I heard you say that there's things that you're going to need from the candidate more immediately, and then recognizing what is coachable or your responsibility as a leader. So sometimes it's those extra soft skills that come with data science is what you work on in management with them, rather than expecting it all up front. So when Kate is here, she'll say, yeah, hiring managers, stop wanting unicorns when they don't all exist. And then we've got some tips for for candidates how to really be awesome in an interview. Good problem solving capability. Show how you can think of that, and show some lateral thinking around some of your answers goes a long way. Mark, thanks for joining us. This has been ML's like Team Spirit.